Hey, welcome everybody. I'm Jason Caparoso, CTO here at BlackHawk Data. And today we're going to be doing some discussion around Umbrella and why that could potentially work for you or can be important these days, especially in this whole new cool thing of, well, not so good thing of coronavirus. And it's a bit odd. I'm actually in our office today. I'm filming this here from our office because it's quiet, unlike my house that has my kids in it. So today we're going to take it away. We're going to do a little bit of PowerPoint presentation. I'm not a person for PowerPoint. Anybody that actually knows me knows that I hate PowerPoint more than anything on the planet. But we got to get some of the foundations put in there in place. A couple of things, I guess, to tell people, if you want to post a comment on there, the comments will be posted to our moderator chat. Someone will be able to answer your questions, or we'll pull your questions into the actual show itself here, and we'll be able to answer them live. Anything after that, we're going to get started with the slide deck here and go through that. One of the things, I guess, if I knew was, or I'd like to know about some of our audience members here is, do you have any background in Umbrella, and what is your familiarity around DNS? So without further ado, let's get started. Cisco Umbrella, the security without boundaries. So let's get started. This guy. So this is me. I'm Jason Caparoso, like I stated earlier, CCIE, 20 years in the industry, 10 years in the service provider world, another 10 to 15 years of being a consultant. Joyous, fun times, and I love what I do on a daily basis. And great love for technology. I've learned a lot throughout the years. So I like to share it with people and try to make the most out of what I've learned over the years and what you can actually do with technology. Maybe a lot of people skip over. Which will come up in some further on webinars after this one, things as far as using BGP as a security tool and all sorts of fun stuff. So this is me, large scale deployments, DWDM, MPLS, everything under the sun. You name it, I've probably done it. And that's why now my picture's gone to gray because I've gotten old. So we'll go to the next slide. BlackHawk Data. If you've never heard of BlackHawk Data or you haven't used this yet, you should really give it a shot. BlackHawk Data is a company that I am a co-founder of. The reason for starting BlackHawk Data is that we wanted to actually put the solution and the services first. We didn't want to lead with a product or to actually try to wedge something into a solution that doesn't fit. Our premise in BlackHawk Data is to do the right by the customer and to try to do the right thing and to have the right solution for the people that actually need to use the technology. Not everything fits in all pieces. So that's what we do here at BlackHawk. We take a holistic view on what you have and then try to find what the best solution is for your business. So let's get started on Umbrella. Simple security. How simple? Real simple. Matter of fact, I actually just deployed a trial yesterday. It took me about 3.5 minutes. Fantastic stuff. We'll actually get into that in a couple minutes. So what we're saying here, of course, every company has a different set of data and different aspect on the way that they actually secure it. So why we're actually putting it here, I'm not going to read you the slide. I'm sure you can read, but one thing to note down here is they call it hybrid remote work. Why is that? Well, many people, there's different ways of people working remotely, whether they're a full cloud-based company, Office 365, Salesforce, all the SaaS platforms, everything under the sun. Then there's the others, of course, where there's the hybrid of VPNs and Citrix and you name it, whatever kind of odd remote desktop situations that people find themselves in. The one thing that I find over and over again, though, is the actual inability for the people to work remotely and not complain and not see problems in performance or access, or really just not taking the tools seriously. What will happen more often than not, people will complain about performance. The next thing you know, you get a split tunnel VPN. And anybody that knows anything about a split tunnel VPN, of course, one leg sits in your corporate environment, the other one out to the internet. What does that look like to the attacker or me in the younger year? Well, it's a nice gateway for me to come through that machine right into your corporate network. So how do you secure yourself? Well, most companies stick their head in the sand, unfortunately. So this is some facts that actually came from a reputable source here. We got down here. Yeah. So 1 in 4 companies face risk of major breach. It's expensive, 3.9 million. Now you're probably saying to yourself, yeah, my firewalls and security, IPS, my SIM, all that great stuff probably costs more than that, especially after I implemented it, paid for the licensing and all that kind of stuff. So I should be good. Well, hopefully. Problem is, if most of the people are now remote, or even if they're in the office, they're not going through all those fancy tools that you paid millions and millions of dollars for. So now we come to the new normal. Why do I call it the new normal? Well, I wish I couldn't, but unfortunately, it looks like the whole COVID piece here is a bit longer term, as I'm sure many of you are remote and you're trying to figure out if your kids are going to school in September, like myself. And it seems to be changing the landscape of the way that we're going to work in the future. The more people that I talk to, the less that are actually going to have full staffs back in the office, going to start shrinking down office space. And why? Well, for this reason. Productivity is actually up. Performance is better. Engagement can actually be better because, well, if I don't have to get on the train in the morning at 6 a.m. and then lug myself into the office and try to get through the slush in the New York City streets to get into work, it's nice and easy for me to wake up and go downstairs and open my laptop. So I think that helps in a lot as far as engagement, retention of employees. The problem is this. So when you're home, what's your trust factor right there? I mean, the only thing that you really have between you and the internet or whatever other things that you decide that you're going to click on or phishing links or all that kind of stuff, it's usually you and a Netgear router or maybe something that Verizon dropped off in your basement. What kind of security level is that? It's not your millions of dollars of security tools in the corporate office that you may have or may not have. I have a much different take on the whole security footprint, which we can discuss later, but I can babble on for days, so I'll try to not do that. So when we start talking about this, phishing, right? Someone gets an email, crafty one, maybe your password's expired, click here to update, those kind of things. Device security. Well, how do you actually keep your devices patched? If they're not in the office, hopefully you just got a policy set that they're going to do automatic Windows patches, but if there's other applications on there, homegrown stuff, things that need to be manually done, how do you actually manage those desktops, keep them secure? As far as the other two, unsecure networks and malware virus, well, I think that's kind of self-explanatory. The biggest point on this slide, actually, though, is this piece here. 80% of remote users do not connect to the corporate VPN. Now it's actually a study that's been done, not just this year with the coronavirus, but over the years, we saw that as people became more mobile, especially salespeople and a lot of project managers and things like that, that tend to be more on sites and customer actions, whether it's construction projects or things like that, there's no need for them to connect to the corporate VPN. You can get your email, you can get to Salesforce, you can get to Office 365, to SharePoint, to Dropbox, whatever you need without the VPN. But as convenient as that is for the user, that also takes out all the security measures that you work so hard to put in place. So how do you combat something like that? Now, I know you're probably thinking it's like, well, I got endpoint detection. Got this great EDR. Thing's fantastic, right? Paid all this money. I got CrowdStrike. I got Carbon Black. I got Trend Micro. I got all these great things. Maybe I even got Cisco AMP. That's good. Not saying it's not. Problem is, how many of those are effective that if someone gets an email that they think to reset their password and they give their credentials away? Their machine's not infected. But whoever they gave their credentials to, well, now they're in your network roaming around doing whatever they want. So where does that lead us? DNS. DNS, one of the oldest services, probably actually one of the oldest before, it predates BGP. DNS goes back to 1983 when they actually came up with the idea of the host file, and then somebody was nice enough in Berkeley to create the bind server, and we got DNS. So before that, memorizing IP address is a very difficult thing. So now everybody goes by name. Great thing about DNS, 90% of malware attacks use DNS. Bad thing about DNS, not many companies are using it as a security tool. Some of them don't even look at it. So you don't even know that what's going on. You could have a better insight by just checking where your traffic's going. Easier said than done, though. There's not many times you want to sit there and stare at a syslog filter. Who the hell wants to do that? You know, look at all these nice DNS requests. You're looking at 16 million requests for the one bad one. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But luckily, Umbrella is there to do that for you. So how does it work? Well, pretty simple. Any user down here, they go to the internet, they look for an address, they hit the Umbrella server returns an actual address. In this case, of course, it's cisco.com. In other cases, where it's not, they'll get a different request. Well, I'm going to show you real quick what we're going to do in the background here while we're sitting around, because like I told you, I hate PowerPoint, just like anybody else. Here's one of the servers we actually have. It's a lab server that's in this environment. So what we're going to do is and I'll show you this so you know that I'm not, because I'm you know, anybody that knows me knows I'm actually one of the biggest skeptics of all time. So I don't know how many people actually know about this site, abuse.ch. Fantastic site, right? I recommend it. Here's the thing. This malware bazaar, that's live malware. It's actually real stuff. Don't download it and open it on your machine, because you'll be in for a terrible surprise. And don't actually take it and email it to your friends. Most of the time it gets caught. You know, actually I emailed it to everybody on this site now. Just kidding. I wouldn't do that to you people. You're nice people. You join my webinar. So this does have actually, it's more for research purposes. What we're actually cared about today, though, is this piece here, the URL host, right? So what we're going to look at, if we just click here for the URL database, this will show us a whole bunch of malicious URLs. And this is updated usually every couple of minutes. You'll see that updates come into this. It's in UTC time, so don't really look at that. So as you can see here, I mean, these are online. These are all been knocked offline. All right, there's a whole bunch of them today that actually already went down. So usually the way that I create a test list out of this is I go to the URL API, right? So you go into here, and then you look at this, and you take the ones you want online only if you want to run your own tests. And I'll actually give you my script. If you want, I'll send you all the links. I'll send you my script, all that stuff, you know. Send me an email. My email will be posted somewhere, I'm sure, on this video or in the comment section or something along those lines. So what you do in here, you just save link as, you save it as a CSV, all right? So what's that going to do for you? Okay, so I already saved it, so I don't need to really save it again. I got 13 copies of this, and plus this is kind of live. I didn't want to waste time showing you how to edit a CSV file, because I'm sure you could figure it out. But what does that actually do for you, right? So what happens is you wind up with a list. Well, it looks like this. Right, now let me scroll in a little bit, zoom in a bit. Now this is everything. I pulled out a quick one, about 1,000 different domains. These are all still active. You know, some of these is as recent as came on the network yesterday, like this guy here. You know, some of them a couple days ago. Some of them have been up for quite a while. Usually with malware, what happens, or any of these real malicious sites, usually they go up and then they get ripped back down again, or they get moved around, or the people use different subdomains, or maybe they switch domains all the time. So one of the actual features of Umbrella is the reputation of the domain, is how long that the domain's actually been online. And why that's important is exactly for that. If I run a malware site, I'm not going to leave my information up all the time. Why? Well, it's easier to track me down. And the other thing is, most of the time I hijack somebody's server to actually run this kind of service, well, or anti-service. So one of the other fun things that you do while you wait is go to this site, me.censys.io, and you can actually see your own connection at your house. So you can see how secure that your own house network is, right? Right now, if you just take a quick, the full report, it's pretty cool, right? So it'll show you a bit more in depth of what's going on here. It shows where I am, all this kind of stuff. I'm actually on our guest network, so we're going through a Cisco ASA. It'll tell you somewhere in here, and then look at that. I'm actually vulnerable to the poodle attack. Isn't that fantastic, right? So we will. So I would say take a look at that site. It's fantastic stuff. It'll also give you an idea as far as how vulnerable you probably are when you're working at home, right? Because as a hacker, you use all sorts of tools like this and Shodan and everything else under the sun to make your life a bit easier. Those sites are all there to actually make the internet safer, but it also makes the hacker's life a bit easier. So how do you protect yourself? Enterprise-wide coverage in minutes. Now, why do we say that, right? On-network coverage with one setting change. More or less your DNS forwarders, right? You change that one setting of where your DNS is getting sent. So let's say your DNS is your Active Directory servers inside your organization. Your eDNS settings or your DNS forwarder settings, depending on what kind of servers you use, you switch that to the Umbrella servers. I'm sure you got 5 minutes, so I'll wait. You do that, and the nice thing about that is more or less you're automatically protected by doing that. But the problem becomes that's only on site, and that only gives you the coverage but no visibility, right? So we'll go into a little bit more into how you gain some better visibility into that and also how you gain more coverage. The great thing about Umbrella, integrates with other third-party tools that you already have, the FireEyes, the Palos, the Checkpoints, the ZeroFox, a whole bunch of different things. I skipped down there a bit. So how about off-network? Off-network, if you use AnyConnect, there's a VPN client integration. If you don't have AnyConnect, or maybe you use Global Protect, or maybe Checkpoint Shop, or whatever it is, there's a lightweight agent, very lightweight agent. It only uses about a meg of memory actually when it runs. It's actually just a DNS proxy. So what happens is that agent gets launched onto the machine. All your DNS requests actually get pushed through the proxy, and it goes right to Umbrella. The nice thing about that is that gives you user information, and it also gives you machine information of where the request is. And the great thing is it doesn't matter if the machine is on the network, off the network, coffee shop, Beijing, it doesn't matter, wherever you want to be. Also a Chromebook agent. They're actually in the process of updating that agent, I was told. So still there, but they're going to change it up. And then, of course, for the off-network mobile coverage, for your cell phones, right now you can definitely get one for all you Apple users out there. I think it's actually in the store itself. You can just pull that down. And then there's also the piece for Android as well. A little bit about the packages. Like I said, I'm not a big PowerPoint guy. And also, if you want to know a whole bunch of things about Umbrella as far as what license you should have and all those kind of things, and Cisco, I'm sure the Cisco site's more helpful than I am in a lot of those cases, if you really want to drill down into the weeds. So as far as Umbrella goes, right now, for the most part, it's sold in two different ways, right? There's still the legacy options, and then, of course, everything is more towards the DNA piece of it. If you buy any Cisco products, you probably know what the DNA is. So right now, there's the Essentials package, the Advantage, and then the Umbrella SIG. Now, the real difference between these is how much visibility you actually get between the two and what kind of other integrations you can get. Essentials and Advantage, we'll give a demonstration actually of an Advantage package a little bit after this, and then the Essentials. Now, the nice thing about Essentials is that Essentials, not the Essentials, but the SIG Essentials, rather. So that's the Secure Internet Gateway. The nice thing about that is it's not just the DNS piece. Not to say this isn't just DNS either, because even if the malware tries to use an IP by itself, right, you can proxy the IP through the gateways back to Umbrella, so that this way that Umbrella knows whether or not the either the software or the malware, whatever it is trying to avoid it. Maybe it's not using DNS, it uses an IP address. You see it's actually very common. If we look at this list actually that I pulled up before from Abuse.ch, you'll see that in the list. So let's see. If I go back to your URL browser here, usually once you scroll down here a little bit, man, there's a lot of stuff that actually hit the queue today. It's a busy day. And you hear that many of the old, not the old, but they were offline for a few months, some of the older botnets. So now they're all back, and I guess they've all been revamped and causing a lot of trouble out there. So those will be able to block not only the IPs and the DNS requests. The SIG, though, gives you a full-featured firewall, gives you sandbox capabilities, plus the integration with ThreatGrid. So it's a great idea that if you didn't, let's say if you run a shop and you don't want to have a firewall, or you don't want to have anything, you can buy this, put this on every machine, and then everything is more or less, it's having a complete security package that you don't have to pay for by the month. As far as hardware, you don't have to do maintenance, you don't have to have someone running it. Everything is taken care of. And as far as Umbrella goes, as uptime, I think it's at 100% uptime, I think, for the past 10 years. So they're doing pretty good. Now, enough of the slides, as I said. So let's get into the demo. I'm really jumping ahead there. So let's have a look-see. What are we looking at today? We'll launch the dCloud demo because they have all the cool stuff in it. But what I'll show you as well is actually the trial that I spun up yesterday, just so you get an idea of what it looks like to you. Because, you know, to me, if you're anything like me, you don't believe anybody. So it's one of those things that, why believe me if I'm going to show you, hey, look at this great thing on the vendor site, right? They show you how well everything works. Amazing. I've never seen that demo before where everything works just swimmingly and then it gets into your environment and doesn't work at all. I'm sure none of you have ever seen that. But one of the other things too that you can do if you actually just want to test out Umbrella on your own, it's like the poor man's way. I'll show you the script that I use. But you could also do it like this too. Just type in NSLookup in a command window, you know, and then give your server so you're actually using that. And then take some of those domains that you see in that abuse.ch, throw them in there and see if Umbrella blocks them. You know, what I usually like to do is let's say I just take that, let's say my malware list here, right? I don't know, let's take a couple, let's see how it does. Why not, right? It's a live show, how bad could it be? So let's paste those in there, or not. Alrighty, there we go. And let's see, how'd it do? Pretty good. Now you're probably looking at that and you're like, they all got a response. How's that pretty good? It's like I just got hosed. No. Let me show you something. Now, so anyway, let's actually try to get into one of these domains. Here we're actually using Umbrella DNS. So what happens if I actually try to get to it? I don't know. Nothing, it turns out. Shut down. Yeah. So that's what actually your users will see too. If they actually try to get to domains that Umbrella knows as far as being a malware domain. Now, I've been told many things over the years. You know, doing this for a couple of decades, people give me all sorts of reasons. It's too difficult. It's too hard. I don't want to know what my users are doing. My users are too good looking to get hacked. Believe me, man, I've heard it all. Especially that last one. I love that excuse. I got that one. That's the best one yet. But so let's see. As far as the deployment, right? So I'm saying this was easy. So what did I do? Yesterday, I went in here. I clicked on network. Now, to get a trial, if you actually want to try this out, we'll give you a 21-day trial. You know, pretty much I just send you an email, and then either we set it up for you, and our guys do it for free to get you into this, and then, or you do it yourself. So all you do is just let me know, and I'll send you a link. It's as simple as that. So to get this set up, the first thing you do is you go in, you find out what your IPs are coming from that you actually want to be able to capture. So I threw in one of ours that's in our NOC location where I'm sitting right now, and then my house was the other one. So that was it. Yeah, I mean, if you look at this, you add a network name, IP address, select the mask, you're off and running. Then you can get further down the line, right? So this is the important one here. I'll show you this in the actual dCloud deployment. But if you want to actually deploy a roaming client, it's pretty simple, even at that, right? So you just download a Windows client, download a Mac client, or you just do the mobile profile here, and then you install this client, and you're pretty much good to go. There's a couple of steps kind of before that, but for the most part, though, that's about as easy as it gets. A couple of things, though, you should do first. We'll wait for it to load because the internet is moving like very slow today for me. Make sure that any internal domains or any domains that you do not want to be forwarded to Umbrella, you put in here first. Otherwise, all your internal traffic will be sent to Umbrella, which will make a very bad day for when you try to get to internal resources like printers and Active Directory and Exchange and all those kind of things. You'll have more complaints than you have anybody really patting you on the back for doing a good job. Probably get fired. But easy things. Sites and Active Directory. One of the best things is the integration with Active Directory, right? So what we'll do, you want to put it into Active Directory. All you have to do is we're going to run the script below, and that's pretty much it. So we we won't actually do it because I'm not going to integrate it with Active Directory. I'll show you what it looks like on the other side. But that is pretty much about it. Now, there's a couple different things you could also do in here, right? So, I mean, the first thing you want to do is you're going to add a DC, of course. So you're going to go here, add your DC. And the other thing, this here. Now, this VMware appliance, or you'd have it for Hyper-V. And the reason here is for your on-site visibility, for Umbrella to actually figure out whether or not, or who the users are, rather than just forward it, like I said originally, change your forwarding records or your forward DNS and inside your Active Directory or wherever your DNS servers are internally, whatever your users are using. Problem is, everybody comes from the same IP, and I'm going to show you how that looks, and you'll see what I mean, and then I'll show you how it not looks. So the other way is that we install these VMware boxes, about 400 megs, not really a resource-intensive box. We take that, we do an AD connector into that VMware box, and then we take the IP of those new VMware boxes or Hyper-V boxes, and those become the DNS server. So we switch the DHCP scope to those boxes. Then what happens, every request that gets through there, if it's internal, it goes to your, let's say, AD servers. If it's an external request, it gets forwarded out to the Umbrella servers, but it also contains all the user information that's hooked into it. So when you go into and you start looking at your reports in Umbrella, they're a bit more meaningful than just my external network sent me malware, which isn't very helpful. I mean, it's helpful to know that you're somewhat hosed, but you know, that's a whole different story. So, policies. What can you do? Do all sorts of great things. One day it'll actually show me. While we're waiting for that thing to load its policies, I'll show you this, kind of what I'm talking about. So the reason that you actually want that, right? So if I go to this, security activity. This guy here, he's been blocked. Trying to get the malware. Same thing with this one. So as we go down, you know, we'll see that you get more and more granularity of it, whether it's lightweight agents or if it's just network-based, you're going to see this, New York City office. Right? So when you have the lightweight agents or the VM appliance actually installed, you'll be able to see much more. Like if you want to actually look at this, I mean, you can start to look at just users and as far as what they actually see, right? I mean, you can get very, very detailed in here as far as what you want to see by user, by domain, by pretty much anything. Let's do a quick security overview. Let's switch back to the other one now, because we should have our policies up by now. I was going to do it in the other one, but I don't have read right. I only have read in the D cloud of Cisco, so I'm not allowed to change anything. So it's not as much fun. Yesterday, I was actually messing around with this. Amazingly, I selected something I wasn't really paying attention. You know, it's one of those days where you're half in and you know, it's like 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. And I decided to put a block on our own network, and I wound up stopping everybody in the company from getting email, which was a fun time. Luckily, I'm high enough up in the company where they can't fire me. At least that's what I think. Anyway, so first thing we'll do is we'll select an identity, take a network out of that, you know, and let's pick just one. I'll take this. This is where I am. Hopefully I don't block anything. And we'll go to that. Now what can you do? Well, do all sorts of good stuff. Yeah. SSL decryption. Now, if you actually load a certificate in this, which you actually see in the deployment options, you can technically crack the packet, an SSL packet, see the internal side of it, and then re-forward it back out. So what's actually happening there is that this way that if something's already built its own tunnel and things like that, and now it's forwarding the traffic through the tunnel, at least this way you can start to get visibility into it. IP layer enforcement. This is what we spoke about earlier, as far as the idea that suppose the threat is using a hard-coded IP, or there's actually a variant of malware that's been somewhat recent where it decided that it was going to build peer-to-peer relationships. That one was all based on IP addresses. So it would build a network from your network to somebody else's network to somebody else's, you know, kind of, it was like a, you know, a interesting Napster or torrent network or something. Enforce safe search. You can definitely do that. It's one of those things, if you look in your browser, you'll see Google Safe Search. And if you turn this on, once it's actually on, that's pretty much it. They have to use Safe Search. No more unsafe results for them. If you turn this on, don't do this. You can, but you have to explicitly allow things or else everything gets dropped. Log everything. If you don't log stuff, you're just wasting your time. So I would definitely put, I would definitely log all requests. I'd say that for everything under the sun, as far as any kind of security, networking, anything. If you're not logging what you're looking at, then it's very hard to troubleshoot. It's very hard to ever investigate what happened or any kind of trend or anything like that. The nice thing with this is, for the most part, it is logged to an Amazon S3 bucket. Now, there's some different pieces around that, but we're already halfway through the hour here, so I got to shut up a bit, I guess. So now, here's the more fun stuff, right? Malware, newly seen domains. This is one of the other things that we talked about. Now, by default, this is not on. The reason for that is it can create false positives, and sometimes it leads to a little bit more work on the administrator's part, security administrator's part. But like we spoke before, a lot of the malicious domains, they pop in and out and been registered for 2 or 3 days, and then they disappear, you know, or they're a subdomain of something else. So that's just part of the whole package there. Dynamic DNS. You can block dynamic DNS sites. DNS tunneling. So this is anything that actually tries to stick DNS inside of HTTPS or anything like that to try to get away from it. I actually love the acronym. It's dope. Reminds me of Homer Simpson. You know, DNS over HTTPS. So for now, we'll leave this alone just to kind of go through this as far as what we're seeing. Now, categories to block. You can either leave it where it is at high, blocks all this kind of stuff, probably things that people shouldn't be doing on their work laptops. Depending on what business they're in, who knows? Maybe if you sell alcohol, that's probably not a restricted thing, or I don't know, maybe you work for Facebook, so social networking is probably allowed. So, you know, but you could always take that. I mean, there's different blocks here, low, moderate, you know, and then of course custom, and then you select what you want, right? And honestly, testing this out, it's been pretty accurate. I've had a couple of sites that definitely snuck past it, depending on how crafty I want it to be, as far as what my domain choices were. And I found that I got a couple of gambling sites past it. Not that I'm, you know, I'm not like an addicted gambler or anything, so I know weird sites, but you know, it's just, I was testing the waters. So truthfully, it catches most things, but don't rely on it 100%. I can tell you a story that, you know, we put in some proxies years ago for a customer, and it didn't work out when the guy gave the demonstration to his CEO. So applications, whatever application you want. I got to say, Umbrella does have a very, very nice list of applications. Now, this is the high level piece of it, right? So if you decide that you want to just leave some peer-to-peer, but you want to get rid of BitTorrent, or maybe, you know, maybe you don't like EMC, that's fine. I really don't like EMC either. Hopefully they're not on the call. They probably are. So they'll watch this one day on YouTube and be like, oh, I hate that guy. That's all right. So you can select any of these categories that you want, of course, and it does a very good job as far as being able to block that. You can get very granular. I'm not going to block anything because my luck, I'll block this screen share that we're doing right now, and that'll be the end of that. So after this, global block list, all right? I didn't actually create any of these, so we can't actually do anything here. We can add a new list. So new destination list. You could block, let's say that you know that the URL, it's just a URL you don't want people to get to for whatever reason. You know, maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's a competitor site. I don't know. Maybe it's a site for people looking for jobs, resumes, something like that. And so, you know, who knows? You might have your own reasons for blocking things, or maybe there's a corporate policy against some things. So you just put them in here and you add them to the list. You could also bulk upload like a CSV file, and this way that you can drop in hundreds of them, that if there's a reason that you want to have your own custom block list, or that if you actually want to download one of the block lists from one of the sites. like Spam House or somebody like that. You can do that as well. Not really worthwhile though, because checking their block list against what Umbrella does, it's pretty close. It's probably just wasting your time at that point. File inspection. I'd recommend leaving it on. Yeah, why not? It's a great thing. It works well. I haven't seen it cause any problems yet, so leave it on. Custom appearance. I always try to personalize it a bit for your users as far as why they're getting blocked. Maybe you put a message in here or something, maybe even a redirect URL if you have an internal server or something you want them sent to. But this will cut back on a lot of the headaches you'll get from stuff being blocked. Because what'll happen is they'll just get the default Umbrella page, and then your users are going to call the help desk and they're saying, oh, I'm trying to get to this gambling site, or I'm trying to get to this and I can, or they'll probably lie to you and be like, I can't get to Google, because that's what we see 99% of the time. No one ever is truthful about where they're trying to go. Great thing about this is though, you can actually find out and be like, no, turns out you're not trying to go to Google. You're trying to go to like casino.net, and that doesn't rhyme. So the one thing is, what you can do now, I'm sure, as everybody knows, because being the IT guy, you're never the top guy. Let's face it. You be the CTO, you're still not the top guy. There's always going to be the board of directors. There's going to be somebody, the CEO. Everybody has the special exception, right? So you need to put users in here and bypass it. A little bit dangerous, I'll be honest, because a lot of those people, they're the number one for getting fished, because spear phishing is definitely their thing. Because if you're going to look for somebody in a company, right, and you want to actually have the most bang for your buck, you're not going for the janitor. Let's face it, it's a waste of your time. If you're a hacker, you're going to go for one of the high-level execs, because anybody, you can breach his email account, and then you start sending emails from that account. Everybody's going to believe what you say. Oh, wire, $8 million to some random account in Mumbai. Why not? Why not, right? The chief said so. Go ahead, wire it out. So that's one way to do it. And you definitely can. You create custom policies for people as well. So you create user groups. That's what I recommend. Don't just broadly, a big broad brush and just, they get to everything under the sun, because then they'll also get the malware and everything else. Other thing you can do is you can create a bypass code. Sometimes this is useful, especially if you have development teams that you want to just be able to give a bypass code to while they're testing stuff. So this way that you can create this and then give it an expiration date. So this way they know they're testing stuff and they're doing weird things. Who knows? Maybe they're spinning up new domains on AWS and doing all sorts of weird stuff that you would usually flag because you have the newly registered domains piece checked in there. That's very helpful. Where you don't want a constant exception. You don't want to have to come back and edit policies and make changes and things like that, because it's these situations where where you only have to have it once in a while, right? So now that I'm sitting here in Babylon, what I was actually going to do is I was going to show you. We downloaded a file earlier today, so I'll show you what this actually looks like, this script, because I meant to launch this earlier and then I got talking. So what's actually in here? A couple different things from Cloudflare. This was Quad 9. I switched to DNS. Actually, the one that we're actually using is. So what this is actually doing is it's just doing a recursive lookup. More or less, it's hitting these DNS servers with a file that I called bad. So let's take a look at bad. What does that look like? Oh, I just read bad. Oh, bad text. Oh, sorry. I was. So this is a whole bunch of malware domains. This is the list that I actually pulled down earlier today, about an hour before we got started, because preparation is my thing, as you can tell. So good number of lists. I think right now in this one, I pulled down stuff that was recent, because I figure I don't want to test things that have been known for 16 months, because that doesn't help anybody's cause. So these here, they're all 3 months or less. About 780, I believe, in that list. So what we're going to do is, just to show you, I could just do this, right? And we'll let it run. And then what this is actually going to do, this one here, it's going to generate a CSV file, is what it's going to do. Now, that CSV file, hold on, I take a drink here. And yes, that's water. So that's a good question. Why I'm letting this run. Is there a way to block phishing emails? For example, if I added AmazonSafeLogin.com in the email, which is definitely not the correct link, can we use it to stop spam emails? You could use it. It's definitely great to stop phishing emails. Here's the thing. It's not stopping anything from actually getting emailed to the person, but what it is stopping is that when the person clicks on the link, they won't be able to reach the link, right? So even though everything looks legitimate, and especially now there's been some newer things that came up as far as the actual Unicode in Chrome and in Outlook that you can actually make it appear that you're a legitimate sender, that it's a legitimate link like google.com, and make you download a Panda or something. So the link's going to get to their mailbox. It's not going to stop the spam from coming in because the DNS isn't working in that direction, right? The DNS is from you asking the DNS server, how do I get to this website or, mail server, whatever it is, right? And we can take the deep dive into DNS, but again, we don't have that kind of time. So what I'm saying there is that if I get an email and it's a spam email of some sort, and it says, okay, for this, click on this link, and whatever it is, reset my password, download this file, check your invoice. I think the other ones are, the voicemail to email things. We get those constantly. I can't stand that one. But what it will do is it'll actually stop you from being able to get to that link, and you'll see the block page instead of going to a site that maybe looks like an Office 365 site, because that's probably one of the most common phishing ones. I could show you a site, probably off this one, that I could show you how to make a fake Office 365 site from another website. It takes about 15 minutes, and then you could send that out. And all it does is it just takes your password and your username and password and caches them into a text file on the back end. So that this way, as this goes through, people come in, you send them these emails, they put in their credentials trying to log into Office 365 because they need to download this secure document. And the next thing you know, you have a whole bunch of credentials in a text file that you can use to actually log into their account and then change their own password, sweep all their email to delete, all those kind of things. So that way that they're completely hosed. So this one here. So as we're running through that, we'll give that a minute. And let's go back to where we were. Does OpenDNS work with HTTPS sites? Of course. Now, when we think about DNS, right, we have to think about it. What are we actually thinking about when we talk about DNS, right? So let's actually go to the presentation again. I think I have, as much as I don't want to. So if we look at it, your DNS request, the only thing DNS is, for the most part, is just asking you, what is this? That's the only thing it cares about. There's the root, and there's the actual word after that. And so it's going to say, okay, Cisco.com. It's going to ask the resolver, and then it's going to go back and it's going to ask the root servers if it doesn't have the answer, if it's not cached in one of the recursive servers. And then it's going to come back and say, okay, well, the root told me to go to this server, and this server is this. Kind of the visual explanation to that looks like, hold on, let's take a look at what the visual looks like on that. So this is what DNS really is, right? There's the root, which is going to be, how many people know how many root servers there are? There's actually lots of them, but really there's only A through M. But so there's the roots, right? There's all your, which is the servers. Those are the most important servers of the internet. They hold the keys to everything. So then you get down a little bit further, right, and use your .com. So this is when you actually start have a zone file, right? You get to this piece here. So this is actually going to be the company. And then this subdomain, so that's inside there. And that could actually be in a different spot. But the only thing that the DNS request really is it's just saying, how do I get to this? So it's just resolving a name to an IP is really all it's doing, because you can't route by name. Everything is, you have to have this. If you don't have an IP, and it doesn't matter, actually, it doesn't matter if it's HTTP, HTTPS, FTP, mail records, service records coming out of DNS to find certain things like SIP or things along those lines. It's all DNS. DNS is a fantastic thing, and it does a whole bunch of different services. And the problem is that it's actually abused when it's not configured correctly, as people may have seen if you know what a DNS amplification attack is or any of those kind of things. So it can be very useful, and then if you don't configure it right, very awful. As we actually just saw with a bug that got discovered by Checkpoint, I believe, actually. The 17-year-old flaw in the Microsoft DNS servers that allows for someone to completely take over the server. So, amazingly, the Umbrella SIG actually stops that. So, as we were saying, so we're running that in the background there. Let's go back actually to demonstration here. Let's go to the actual servers here so you get some real activity. So let's just look through some of this stuff because, you know, I'm yammering on. Anyway, one of these will come up. As you can see, Cisco is not very, wherever this server is, it's in a terrible place. Right? Ransomware, adware, cryptojacking. I mean, they just can't, they must have this, I don't know where they're running this server, but actually most of it's the same thing that I do. It's just all scripts and things like that, and it's just you blast in a bunch of malware domains over and over again. So what they're showing here, this thing here shows you the requests over the time of the day and how many requests got blocked by how many actually get allowed. As you can see, that this server gets mostly blocks. So 80 users. So this way you could look, there's 23 actually registered in here. You want to see what they're up to. One of these days that'll load up. I can also show you what it looks like from the non-Cisco view. We kill this policy. We're not going anywhere with that. So we'll have to do a, you know, another meeting as far as a deep dive into the whole configuration of this piece here. But for now, let's just look through as far as nice security overview and those kind of things, as far as what you can actually see in here, right? Right here, this is great stuff. So you could see it by, let's get rid of this for now. Okay, there we go. So this way you can see all the users that are actually connected. So whether you're using the actual VM that's going to do your AD connector, or that you're going to use the agent or the AnyConnect agent or the likes of that, this will be able to show you not only their internal IP, the external IP, the user, and then what it's actually going on here. You know, they had allowed requests, blocked requests, and blocked requests and why. You go into here and you can view it a little bit deeper in detail to see maybe a little bit more information on what's going on there. So you can see that a default site, it's an A record, external IP. Okay, great. So, but let's say that you want to see more information just about that domain for whatever reason. I think I just clicked on one that was allowed. So there's 345 requests for this one. Allowed and blocked. So we could see what users are actually hitting it. You know, you can get to view all identities and that'll show you everything. So this is what's going on here. Now, there's a policy in this thing here that actually states that certain people can reach this domain and others can't. So that's why you're seeing this information here. So you can make the policies as granular as you want. So that's why it's not that Umbrella decides for, you know, every other request it's going to block something. That's not what it's doing. So that's policy based to say whether or not you can get to it. Let's take a look at threats, or maybe, you know what, 10 minutes, okay. So we saw that. Let's look at app discovery. Now, this is one of the things that I think is really interesting in here, that just by DNS alone, it can tell as far as what applications are running on your network, you know, and also gives you a rating of what it believes the trustworthy or the security risks. And not only that, but the other thing that I found fascinating, which they kind of had recently, I think, was the financial viability. Right. So this is one of those things when you start maybe getting a service onboarded or something like that, they'll actually tell you whatever red booth is, you know, it's being used, but financially it shouldn't be. They're saying that the company's probably unstable. So you don't want to, it's actually a good way that you could look at certain other things that are even outside the normal cybersecurity realm to tell you whether or not you should be doing business with these companies, because who knows, you'll invest a bunch of money in a solution, then they'll go bankrupt. So sorry that the app here is running a little bit slower than usual. So the one thing while that's loading up, we'll still be doing that in the background. So as you get a good amount of visibility into any application that runs on the network, right? So in here, usage risks. The only risk that they really have here is financially viability. I guess they're just not really. This actually comes from Dun & Bradstreet. they're running a DNB score, which if anybody knows DNB, it's more or less it's the business credit score is really what it's like. Instead of you getting a FICO score, the business gets a DNB score. Evidently, they have a low one. So let's see. Oh, the other cool thing about this, and this is something that really makes your job easier, right, is the ability to schedule reports. You know, I think that in itself is a great thing. So what you could do is you can come through here and you could decide on what type of events you want to see. You know, you want to see malware, phishing, blah, 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 whatever it is, right? Blocked, groups, events by type. You want to see for the last 24 hours. And you don't want to log into this dashboard every day and look at it. Well, I'm in a read-only mode, so I can't do a whole lot in here. That's why I was in mine. But you could schedule, once you actually look through here and you go through and figure out what you actually want to have. So you select your antivirus, you know, what kind of traffic you actually want to see, what kind of users, or maybe you want to just see by computer names, or maybe you just want to see the roaming computers. And you could schedule that up and say, okay, give me the report, give it to me every day, every week, whatever it is. All right, save you some time. So then, you know, it gives you all sorts of visibility into this. I mean, unfortunately, we're running short on time, but you can get a great deal of visibility out of just what's coming through DNS. And why is that? Because just about everything that a computer does, or a mobile device, or, you know, whatever it is, everything relies on DNS. There's very, very slim things that still have hard-coded IPs. Sometimes you run into applications that have it. You really shouldn't, just because everybody knows that there were hard-coded IPs into an application or any kind of other things. It turns into a nightmare after a while. So let's see. In the report we were running, let me show you what it does, right? So this is how we did. So this here, what is that, right? It's a whole bunch of them. So what this actually is, if I try to get to that, this is the Cisco DNS Umbrella proxy server that actually blocks everything. That's the IP of it. 107 and 108 are actually the servers that you always get directed to. So whenever you're looking at a request and it comes back like this, like 107, so you can see there's definitely ones out there, right? These are, you know, so not saying that you caught everything, because you do see that, you know, there's ones that got through, you know, so there's definitely IPs that made it past. Not a whole bunch of them, which is good. It's always one of those things, and I'm doing this live, and I ran that report and then pulled it down just now. The hope was that it's not just filtered of, just littered with other IPs besides this one. So we could see that Umbrella actually did pretty good. So in a very easy setup, you know, in a basic thing, it's one of the things I recommend to mostly everyone I talk to, because if you can do some simple implementation, it doesn't disrupt the user. It's not a big lift. There's not a hardware to put in place. It's not one of those things that, you know, it's going to take 6 months to deploy and hours and hours to learn and train the team on. It's can literally be stood up in a couple days and get the thing going. I mean, if you just want to start with the basics without all the visibility to users and machines and things like that, 5 minutes, you can get it up and running. And in 5 minutes, you could be blocking, let's say, I don't know, conservatively 70% of the malicious traffic that's coming in through DNS or malicious IPs. So that in itself, I believe, is worth it. Now, what was the one other thing we were going to talk about? I don't know. Probably nothing. But let's see. Oh, there was one other thing I was going to show you, because one of the things that we always hear is I got an RPZ feed from Infoblox. I got, you know, Palo Altos. I'm going to show you something. This is a very large list, but let's see if we can take a look at it. Anybody that knows a Palos are, you know, they're great boxes, referred to as kind of the Cadillac of the firewall. They come with a Rolls-Royce price. So this is a very, very large list of malware. As you can see, Palo's doing pretty good. Pretty good. You know, for that URL filtering license. So the way that this test was run is I used the sinkhole DNS, just like I used Google. And one server was Palo's, and it was going through a Palo Alto firewall with URL filtering. The second lookup was, well, really, it's a lookup, doing a lookup for all these domains. And what I was trying to do was just reach Umbrella, was all I was trying to do. But it was going through a Palo with URL filtering on. But you can see, I requested 2,300 domains. The Palo caught about 1,400 of them. Umbrella caught another 582 on top of the Palo. So, because you see the 107s, right? That's all things that got missed by the Palo. So I got past the Palo and I got in, and I got caught by Umbrella for all these. So, and then these here, nobody caught. You know, so there's a good handful of those as well. And whether or not how accurate some of the stuff is with those, because sometimes it's only a subdomain that's actually the problem. It's not the entire domain. So it depends on the rating of the actual domain. And we actually just saw that with a domain out of with one of the sound providers had that. So anyway, since we're running short on time here, 2 minutes, we'll scroll back to that. We did the live demo. I know it wasn't all the demo that we wanted to do, but we were running short. So anyway, this is us. We are BlackHawk Data. I am sure that I'm including some notes somewhere as far as how to contact me, how to get yourself a trial. And then also, if you want any of the tools, URLs, any of the stuff, even the script that we use to test out DNS, I'd be more than happy to share it with you. Some of the other things we got coming up, well, hey, I was going to come up on something, but yeah. One of the things we do have coming up is more these live webinars. And what we're planning on doing, some of the ones coming up, we're going to discuss two-factor authentication, also known as MFA, and its integration with different tools and how that can help in your environment, and what it's like to actually deploy something like a Duo and how that fits in. Some of the other things that's more near and dear to my heart, using BGP in any aspect, and I love BGP. If you can't solve it with BGP, you don't know how to configure BGP. Flow spec, oh, good stuff. But anyway, one of the things that we want to go through is how to actually create a more secure perimeter, a more secure environment using existing tools, right? You have firewalls or you have routers or whatever it is at the edge. Intentional black hole routing, you know, remotely triggered black hole routing. It's very underutilized. I worked with a provider for 10 years. That was our main go-to, stop denial of service attacks, all sorts of things, any kind of malicious stuff. It was one line in a BGP configuration, then we'd add a route and it would get distributed and the traffic would just disappear. It was fantastic. So I'm going to go through the idea of how to actually use some of your current tools. One of the other things coming up is going to be, you know, we're going to, what I like to call a party at the disco with NetDisco. That's a fantastic tool, and nobody knows that NetDisco. You should really look into it. And then some of the other just great things that are out there that, you know, I think aren't commonly seen. So be looking on the lookout for some of those coming up. And, you know, since this is more or less my first one, we'll try to clean it up, make it a bit better than where we are today. And hopefully, if anybody's got any questions, please post them in the chat, post a comment, and, you know, just feel free to give us a like on wherever you are, Facebook, YouTube, something, I don't know, whatever other platforms this goes to. Who knows? But as they say, everything must come to an end, including this. So, does anybody have any questions? If we don't see any questions, we'll wrap it up and we'll call it a day at 4 o'clock. I'm sure everybody has great things going on, like shelter in place, don't go outside. It's a nice day out. So I don't see any other questions coming in. So thank you everybody for joining, really appreciate it. And as always, if you need anything or you have any other questions, you want any of the tools or just, you know, a chat, advice, anything, feel free to reach out. You know, I'm always willing to talk somebody's ear off about pretty much anything. So All right. Have a great day, everyone. Stay safe.